From what people have said, I think it's for them understanding what might be slightly unfamiliar techniques, because a lot of them have come from maybe traditional singing stuff, but this is different. We use microphones and so on, so you don't need to be loud necessarily. The music is a lot freer than a lot of them are used to. In other words, you decide the tempo. The melody doesn't have to be adhered to exactly. There's no musical director telling you to do this and that, which for me I'm used to and is a wonderful freedom and what I love. But I realised is for other people is like, well, what do you do then? Because you haven't been told what to do.
Do you think maybe this is because a lot of the people who are newer to this, what they're doing is they've been listening to a record, they love a song, and they want to do the song, and possibly even unconsciously ending up trying to duplicate that song the way it was done on the record?
Yeah, I think so, but we all do that. We all want to sound like this and that, and that's what the whole genres seem to develop. So what's been interesting for me is realising that there are people who have obviously got the capability of making those sounds, but just haven't seen it because they've been looking somewhere else. So I suppose the technique things, the very basic and gentle technique things are to say, well, say for instance this blending or screaming or shouting and stuff, it's like, well, it's not foreign to you really.
Yeah.
Inherently. It's just that you've been busy looking over here, so getting a little taste of, you don't do it very well obviously because the first time, because muscles and all, you've got to get used to it, but nonetheless just enough to open a door to say, so that's the way to that. It feels a bit unfamiliar and I haven't quite got it right, but actually, Yeah, I think confidence is important because all these things you've got to try, and you've got to accept that there's a considerable possibility that you're not going to get them right. They're going to sound ugly, and they're going to sound stupid, and they're going to sound embarrassing, and all those things. So having, and what's nice about the small group here, and everybody in a fairly similar boat, is that pretty quickly you realise, okay, I'm going to make yodeling noises, which I make when I'm demonstrating things, because if you go for some things which are at the edge of your familiarity, you're not expecting to get them perfectly, are you, first time? So you have to be prepared to yodel and split, and then someone say, well, try a little bit more air, or try a little bit more of this. And I think in such a short course, there's a few people that have just had a split second of the possibility, and my job is to point that out, because they might not have noticed it, because they're full of doing it, and obviously aware of other people watching it, no matter how supportive people are. So if you can go away with that and think, well, actually, I did it for a split second, so I can do it for more than a split second with a little bit of application. Well, it's difficult to get it in these 2 days because of the people we've got. You've got to obviously make it understandable and useful to them. So it would depend on the people you've got. You might have to do a different course for people who are semi-professional, because a lot of the microphone technique and stuff like that they'll probably have had under their belt or developed their own way of doing those things anyway, so you've got to be a bit cautious and not just disturb things which work for them. But I suppose most here are, they're musicians and singers, but they've come from a different background, so that's, for this particular course, that's been the nub of it. It's like people who've already got some facility and understanding, discovering actually it could be a lot wider than they've experienced in the past, but that can be just as foreign as almost as never having done it.
Yeah.
In some ways. So yeah, it seems to have worked. I've been pleased. Most people have seemed to have understood what's going on and managed to reproduce it to some extent, and so there's the proof. It seems to me, if you can do it for a little bit, imagine what you could do with greater familiarity and muscles trained up for it. You can imagine what you could do then, if you want to. Yeah, so they're exploring really, some more than others, probably more useful in some ways to Henny as a rock blues singer, than it might be to some of the choir singers who are probably more curious and interested, but perhaps might not take it any further, but they'll come away thinking, this instrument's got more to it than I thought.
It's a broader palette is available.
Yes.
Should you take the time and the
Yes.
effort to develop it.
That's the thing. Yeah. I suppose you could go into more detail in the technical aspects. You could spend more time. So what I've done really is just taken a broad brush and just sort of painted out the various aspects and given an overview of it, whereas you could use a finer brush if you had more time for people who are more interested. You probably have to get a good balance of how you have to word the workshop in a way to attract the people.
When you say balance, you mean the balance between the experience, level of experience of the people who attend the course, or a balance of genres. So there might be a musical theatre person, there might be a jazz singer, there might be a rock singer, there might be somebody who did. You've got that broad palette there, and in a sense, what you're trying to do is you're trying to bring them a little bit together, or teach them things that they haven't done before.
Yeah, I think that generally the participants would have to have a vaguely similar experience, I think. But I think probably what's more important is the interest and desire. Because it doesn't matter where you've come from, if you're really interested in this and want to know it, then you could spend more time. I'm not knocking anybody, but if you spend a lot of time on details, like this weekend, which is only short anyway, of details of people who really only want a sketch, so they can go away and think, might be interested next time in taking that a bit further. If you have those mixed in with people who have already got that and have come here because I really want to sort these areas, then obviously they'd tolerate, I say tolerate because it is quite intensive, they'd tolerate more detail and a longer time spent on various techniques than perhaps someone who just wants really to get an overall picture of the kinds of things, which I think is what this week's been, these couple of days have been about. It's painting an overall picture of people who've got some experience in different areas, but this is an overall picture of the kinds of things people are working on these days with the current 2018 current state of the art, as it were, and the current fashion.
Yeah.
Which it is really.
Indeed.
So yeah, I think so far it's been good, and then some fun at the end. So have a gig and actually just do the thing. Sing it and do it and have some fun with the gig.
Excellent, lovely, thank you very much.
My pleasure.